Hey everybody, so it's time for me to wrap up my April reading. I had a fantastic April reading month. I cannot believe that May is already here, but I need to make sure that I tell you about these books because they were all very, very good. Let's get started. Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you all doing today? As always, I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, I hope you're safe, and of course I hope you're reading an amazing book or two or three or four. It is May, if you can believe that, which is both my husband and I's birthday month. For his birthday, I got my husband a new computer, which then precipitated a change to our whole entire office system here. So we are in transition. I know a lot of you noticed that I did not have my theme music in the last video. We are in the process of going from computer to computer to screen, desk to desk. That side of the camera, you don't want to see it. You don't want to see it, I'm telling you, it's not pretty. But that does not mean I did not read some amazing books in April that I need to tell you all about. So, as always, get out your pen, get out your paper, get out your Goodreads, however you keep track of your TBR. If you are so able, please get these books from your local independent bookstore, or if you are a library user, to get your library copy as soon as possible. Okay, so the first book, I am trying to do this in all my videos, and I know I did it in last month's wrap up, but I'm trying to tell you first off, what my favorite read of the month was. So my favorite read of April was Greek Lessons by Kang, and this is translated by Deborah Smith and Emily Wayward, and this is out from Hogarth here in the United States. Now, many of us know Kang from The Vegetarian, which I believe won the International Booker Award. I have read all of them except for her last book, I think. I've read everything that's been translated into English. I am a huge fan because there's something about her books that always leaves me a little bit off kilter, which I absolutely love. So this book is about a woman who we meet very early on. She's taking a Greek class, and we learned out that she's lost the ability to speak. And as the book goes forward, we found out that this has happened in the past. And recently, she's gone through a couple things. Her mother has passed away. Her child has been taken away from her. And she enters this Greek class really to just sort of dive into this language and the structure, the grammar, all of that. She's a writer by trade, a teacher by trade, and she's sort of lost her ability to communicate. The teacher, the Greek professor, is also going through his own sense of loss. He has some issue with his eyes that is causing him to progressively lose his eyesight. And these two stories of these two people who have lost these senses and how they navigate this space wind up coming together. It doesn't come together like a smooth puzzle, let me tell you that. It definitely is very sort of discombobulated in a lot of ways, but what you find is really this sort of dissertation on the idea of loss and how different people deal with loss, and how two people coming together to sort of create some sort of friendship out of it and how they communicate around what they're losing, if that makes sense. I believe, I know that Deborah Smith has translated a lot of Kang's work, and I just think that they do an amazing job of capturing the beauty of the language. And there's just so many sentences. I was going to read you some stuff, but I'm not going to do that. I just thought this book was really brilliant. I thought it made me think about things that I have never thought about. And I left it not completely fulfilled, but completely in awe of really the ideas. It's not going to be for everyone, but for me, it was a book that made me think and feel and struggle, and I just loved it. I just really did. So that's Greek Lessons by Kang, and this is out from, translated by Deborah Smith and Emily Wayward, out from Hogarth in the United States. This is one of the books that I picked up at Powell Books in Portland when I was there. And I'll tell you right now, I read it within like 2 days of getting it. So absolutely loved it. So in my last currently reading video, I talked about the fact that my husband and I were reading the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, out from Quirk Books here in the US. I loved this. This was such a crazy ride. So basically, we get put down in this small, tiny town where our main character is a housewife who is taking care of her family, but really looking for something more. You can tell from the very first pages that there is a desire. She used to be a nurse and she's sort of feeling boxed in. One night she goes outside to do something with the trash and she is attacked by an old woman who then later passes away. And we meet a new man who's moved into town. And everything goes from there. She is a member of a book club that reads like true crime, serial killer novels. So things start to sort of explode in your head. You find You find out that children are going missing from the local community outside of town, and it's Black children that are going missing, and no one's really reporting on it. It's really actually quite an interesting dissertation on this idea of what makes the news and what doesn't make the news in these small southern towns. And what happens is, there's a villain and a vampire and this sort of thing. I thought it was page turning. I thought it was really good. It does end rather violently. So I will tell you, I was a little surprised by the blood and gore at the end of the book, but I really liked the characters. I loved the pretext of it. I loved sort of everything that was going on. I wanted to know how this was all going to end. It's not your normal vampire story. It's sort of a different take on it, but in the same time, it was just engaging. So it is a little bit horror. Again, the end of it is very, very bloody and gory, but in the end, it makes sense. It makes sense. So that's the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, out from Quirk Books. Okay. Another book that I picked up while I was at Powell's, because I'm obsessed with Europa, was a book I had never heard of, and that's Hourglass by Keiran Goddard. This is, I believe Keiran is a poet by trade, yes. And I don't know where he normally resides, but this is a book told in almost like couplets. They're like little... everything is like about 2 sentences, but they're almost like little poetic couplets. And it's the into, apex, and out of a relationship between a man and a woman. And the whole book is written in the point of him speaking to her, speaking about his obsession with her in the beginning, speaking about how when they do become a couple, his obsession with the fact that she's going to wind up leaving, and then him telling about how his life sort of more or less falls apart once they separate, and how he's never able to sort of get all of those pieces back together. What I love about this book is that these are like real people. Like there's no glamour to it all. They are not perfect. They are hugely flawed. But in that, the language is so beautiful and so poetic and so just perfect, describing imperfection, if that makes sense. It deals a lot with like obsession and self-worth and codependence in a lot of ways. I thought it was beautiful. Again, another book I bought at Powell's and was done with, I think, within 2 days of purchasing it. I absolutely loved it. I had never heard of it. I think the cover is gorgeous. So this is Keiran Goddard's Hourglass, out from Europa Editions. Okay, hopefully things will not fall beside me. Okay, so the next book I want to tell you about came out recently, and that's The Home of Wayward Girls by Marcia Bradley. This is out from Harper Books. This is a tough story, to be honest with you. This is about a young woman, really told in 2 time periods. In one, where in the past, where she is raised in a household by her father and mother, who run sort of this like out of the way school for girls who have gone off the path. Her father is a terrible human being. He is abusive mentally, physically, and uses sort of God as a weapon. And it's about her at that time, really with this desire for friendship and a sense of need to escape. She has to get out of this. She knows she has to get out of this situation. She has a plan. In the other one, where in the future, she is in New York City, she runs her own, what's the word I'm looking for? Nonprofit to help women, women who are on the run and need a sense of place and home. And she's going to they're about to have this conference, but in the background, there's also this legal thing that's going on, and the thought of her father is constantly in her head. So I won't put all of those pieces together for you. The book is hard because there's a lot of stuff that is done to these young women that is very difficult to read, but it's done in such a way that and hope and have faith that they will persevere. And you kind of know that because you know she makes it to New York. But it's sort of how all of that comes together and her friendships from there and how they've sort of manifested into her mission for the future. I liked it. I really, really did. I thought it was great. I thought the main character, Loretta, is really engaging. Yeah, it's a really good read. It's not uplifting. Well, I guess it kind of is, but it's tough at times. But I really, really enjoyed it. So that's The Home for Wayward Girls by Marcia Bradley, out from Harper Books. Okay. Next is a book and an author I knew nothing about, I had never heard of, but, and I didn't even actually plan to read this book. But Catapult had sent me it, and I had taken a bunch of books with me on my trip to Oregon to photograph for my Instagram. And things happened in Oregon and family stuff occurred, and I was not like sort of in my space. So I just picked up this book, and that's The Sun by Gina Berriault. And I don't know if I'm saying Gina's last name. She has passed, and Catapult is, oh no, is this Catapult or Counterpoint? Let me make sure real quick before I, Counterpoint, I'm sorry, Counterpoint, not Catapult, two imprints that I love very, very much, is reissuing all of her novels. I believe she has 5 of them. So this is about a woman who, how do you even say? So we meet her, she's very young, she's just graduating high school. She decides and is certain she's gonna get married. She marries a man, and she sort of put her sense of worth in this relationship. She winds up getting pregnant, having a child, but her husband turns out not to be the man that she needs him to be. He winds up leaving her. She winds up having to return home. And the book is this ongoing sort of issue she has with always trying to find her sense of place and love and sort of a relationship with someone outside of herself in all of these men. There are all of these men, and they never do well by her. However, what she starts to learn as the years go on is the one relationship that she is really needs to put her energy into, and she finds reward from is the relationship with her son. And you find that as she sort of develops this idea, she starts to manifest more of what she wants her life to look like. She makes some silly choices. She's not always the most likable of people, but what I will say is that I found her very engaging. Now the prose in this is very dense. Being honest, it's like there's very little dialogue. It is very just like sort of, I don't know, very like just almost stream of consciousness, but not quite. There's more of a narrative than that. But I thought it was really brilliant. You know, Counterpoint sent me a second book by her that is in a stack right behind this camera that I will be reading because I was very impressed. And I had never heard of Gina, and I had never heard of this book, and I really, really enjoyed it. So that was The Sun by Gina Berriault. And again, this is out from Counterpoint. Which is from Berkeley, California, which, you know, I always like to support my local independent publishers. Okay, this book almost wound up being my favorite read. It was just beaten out by Greek Lessons. And that's Ivy Pochoda's Sing Her Down, out from MCD. This comes out on May 23rd, which is right around the corner. I don't know how to describe this book, but the back of it says that it's a combination of No Country of Old Men for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy and Killing Eve. And that makes so much sense. So we have 2 women that we meet. They are both in prison at the start of the book. One is a white woman who is in for sort of being an associate to a murder. And the other one is Dios, who is much more sort of aggressive, but you find out has gone through a lot in her life. And Dios is obsessed with something that occurred in the cell of Florida. Florida is the other woman. That's her nickname. I believe her legal name is Florence. But what happens is they both get early release from prison because of COVID. And they are bussed out of their prison, put in this hotel for this 2-week quarantine, and then they're free to go and do whatever. Now, Florida is from California. That's her drive. She wants to get back to California, where she is from a wealthy family and had a lot of privilege before all of this went down. And the book becomes this obsession Dios has with Florida and how that becomes sort of everything around these two women. There are other characters. There's a police officer that gives their point of view. There is a prisoner who is like the roommate, cellmate, that's the word I'm looking for Florida, that gives us another perspective. And you sort of feel like this sort of Dios's obsession with Florida is really for her just to admit the violence inside. And Dios is sort of comfortable in that space, and Florida refuses to acknowledge that space and how that sort of combusts by the end. It's beautifully written. It is a page turner. It is, it's not tough to read, but it is definitely really, I hate to use the word visceral, but I'm going to use that word here. I thought it was brilliant. I haven't read any Ivy Pochoda before, and I'm probably saying her last name wrong, by the way. But Seeing Her Down was a book that I read about, was super excited about, and was not disappointed in. Highly recommended if you like sort of a thriller-esque Western set in modern times, if that makes sense. Highly, highly recommend. Seeing Her Down, Ivy Pochoda, out from MCD, May 23rd. Okay. I have been trying to read a fantasy novel a month, and Orbit has been very, very nice to me, sending me these series. And so I've been trying to read one at a time. And the first one I read this month was We Ride the Storm by Devin Madson. This is book one in, so far, I believe it is a 4-part series called The Reborn Empire. I loved this book. I would say, I can't say I flew through it because it's long, right? But I definitely, every time I touched it, I was flipping the pages. We have 3 main characters in this book. Miyoko, I think that's Miko, M-I-K-O, Miko. Miyoko is my cousin, and I don't know why I just did that. Miko is a princess, and we learn has a plan very early on to take over the empire. She has a twin brother, and she has formulated this way for him to come into power and replace her father. We find out very early that there are questions regarding the lineage of these 2 children and whether or not they are actually the emperor's children. We have another main character who is Cassandra. She is a hired assassin / lady of the night. And she has been hired to take out the son of the religious leader of a competing empire to the one that Miko is and her family are in charge of. And then we have Ra, R-A-H, who is the leader of sort of like a band of, they call them barbarians in the book, but I don't know that that's the right word. But they live off the land. They are very connected to their horses and their religion and their gods and their spirits. They are captured very early on by this competing nation to fight for them in the takeover of Miko's country. This book is like a political fantasy novel with sort of an Asian historical flair. And it's just really good. All of the characters are really interesting. The pages turn in regards to the plot. Like you definitely want to know how it's all going to go. Things go, it's book one in a 4-part series, right? So things go all types of wrong for our characters. And we start to sort of see how this is all going to play out. I can't wait to read book number 2. I want to read all of the books that Orbit's been sending me, and they have all been so good. So highly recommend We Ride the Storm by Devin Madson, book 1 in the Reborn Empire series, and it is out now. And book 4 is out now too. You can get your hands on it. Last but not least, so as I said, Oregon, when I went to visit my family, a lot was going on, and I needed a little bit of a break, just sort of a mind break. And I don't know if you remember, but a while ago, I read a graphic series called Fence. And it was about a boarding school, a boarding school that had a very, very high-end fencing team, and sort of all of the drama that went into that. This one very, very accomplished fencer comes there. It seems like an odd choice. We have a young fencer who is found to be the unknown son of a very famous Olympic fencer. And they come into this school, and it's all about the drama of it all. There's lots of queer representation. There is lots of, just high school angst, all set on the backdrop of fencing. And then the graphic novel sort of ended abruptly, but the author of that allowed this author, K.S. Packett, P-A-C-A-T, Packett, Pacat to write 2 novels so far that follow the series. There is Fenced Striking Distance, which is book 1, and Fenced Disarmed, where we just continue this story. There is a love issue between these 2 best friends since they were little. There is the competition between the young upstart and the established fencer. It's about friendship. It's about figuring out what is really important in life. It's just plain fun. That's all you need to know. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. And I highly, highly recommend it. I recommend reading the graphic novel series first because it does sort of continue on. Though CS Packet does get us back there through flashbacks and telling us the backstory. But I highly recommend it. And these are just fun reads if you just are looking for something to sort of get involved in the drama of teens and the love life, and just, it's all PG, nothing that you have to worry about getting too involved in. But I just really enjoyed it. So that's Fence Striking Distance and Fence Disarmed by C.S. Packet out from Little Brown. So that is how I ended my reading month. I'm going to put these there because those are about to fall. So it was a really good month. I really enjoyed everything I read. A lot of really good books that I hope you wind up picking up. As always, if you are a return subscriber, I could not do this without you. I apologize. There's been a lot going on right now. And I'm a little bit behind on just about everything in life, to be honest with you. So I will be catching up. If you are a new subscriber, thank you. Please hit the subscribe button. I'm still trying to get to 13,000, to be honest with you. And then, as always, I encourage you to read globally, shop locally, and until next time, I wish you happy reading. Bye, everyone.